Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Test Flight on the F-86 Sabre. In the first video, I went through just a description of the Sabre itself, showed some of the basic interface, and figured out what all it is we have as far as missions and as far as overall setup in the simulation. I got some of my basic flight controls set up as well. Now I'm in the instant action free flight portion of it, and all that I'm going to do with this part of the mission is get an overall feel for the cockpit. And every aircraft has its own little system for where gauges are, where switches are, and that's all I really want to accomplish here is figuring out the system for the F-86 and looking at what is in the cockpit, and also just getting a feel for the overall flight so that I know what I'm in for once I do go through the very detailed systems work, figure out the startup, shutdown, get into systems operation, and weapons deployment later on down the road. So let me go ahead and hit pause break to get the simulation started. Okay, so yeah, very cool engine sound. A little bit of a lower frequency, throatier roar. Okay, so what I expect out of the F-86, and here's my prediction for the first few days after this aircraft is released. Aircraft are going to fall out of the sky due to overheated engines. That's just a fact. Now let me focus on this first. And this is my prediction. I have an EGT, exhaust gas temperature gauge, down here. 690 degrees Fahrenheit is the upper limit. I don't want to exceed that if I can at all help it. I can go higher for shorter periods of time, but the F-86 was notorious for the engine overheating and for getting into situations where you run into a compressor stall. So, as a demonstration, because I know this is going to happen to a lot of people, now watch as I push the throttle up. EGT increases, and right there, I'm not even full throttle. I'm at the limit that I want to be at. If I advance it to full, now I'm busting the limit, and I have a feeling, actually no, I know for a fact, that depending on the altitude and depending on the airspeed that I'm at, that I'm easily going to bust that exhaust temperature limit. So, if nothing else, if you don't take anything else from this first few series, that will help you out a great deal when it comes to keeping your aircraft in the air. So pay attention to your exhaust gas temperature and make sure that you're not firewalling the throttle constantly, because you will end up in the dirt due to a engine flame out or just overall damage to the engine. I almost guarantee it. Okay, now again, what I like to do with the first time that I get into the air is get the overall system for the aircraft figured out. Now, I already have the basic flight control set up, and as I come to the stick and throttle, I will then map to my stick and throttle the appropriate keys. But let me just start by going around the cockpit. I'll start from the left and work my way around, just to get the overall setup. So I've got some circuit breakers back here on the left side. I have no idea if they work or not. It doesn't really matter. You won't really find yourself using those on a regular basis until you get into some very detailed emergency procedures later on, if you're into that sort of thing. I have a rocket intervalometer. And what this does is, if I happen to have rockets on my aircraft, I don't believe I do for this, I think I have just a clean aircraft for this flight, it selects the station that we fired first. So if I want Station 1 to fire first, I'll set it to Station 1. Or if I have tanks with rockets, then I would set it to Station, I think it's Station 9, so that it's going to fire the first station that has rockets first. Okay, coming around. Okay, I've got a light here for windshield anti-ice overheat, so it looks like this is going to be environmental controls, so it's essentially stuff coming off of bleed air coming off of the last stage of the engine compressor. So I have controls down here where I can direct air to different locations, defrost it. There's slots up here around the forward canopy, I believe, also back here around the aft and mid canopy, that will direct bleed air up there to help defrost. There are temperature controls down here to help out with that, heater rheostat, so it controls the amount of heat that's provided through the heat exchanger as part of the system. Okay, ram air 2.75 and 5 psi. So overall, this is just environmental controls. And this one incidentally controls the pressure schedule. So as I gain altitude, I can either set it up to have a 2.75 psi delta between ambient pressure and cockpit pressure, or 5 psi ambient delta, which is kind of cool. We'll get to all this in a detailed look later on. You put that back to both. Okay, it looks like I have alternate flight control, so okay, normal, and then alternate lateral trim, so I have some like backup trim. I have rudder trim. This is the primary rudder trim right here that I can use to trim my rudder. Just making sure I'm still flying correctly here. Okay, and there's the alternate aileron, nose up, nose down trim. Or I'm sorry, that's the horizontal stab and aileron trim, I believe, is integrated into that as well. Okay, what are you? You would be flight control primary. It's going to switch between a primary and a alternate flight control hydraulic system using this switch. And there's an indicator right up here. If you go to the alternate position, this light will come on. We'll see that later though. Okay, guns controls. Okay, right here we have air brake emergency lever. So I have primary controls for my air brake right here on my throttle. It's going to take a lot of getting used to calling this the throttle because it sure looks like a stick. But yeah, I have a speed brake control right there, and of course the throttle with the open, idle, and then off position. We'll get into this once we get into the startup. Flap control, so I have three positions: down, up, and hold. So it goes back to the center position just to take hydraulics off the system once you get into the desired position. More stuff on the stick. I believe this is the mic control. You depress that to initiate comms, and I believe this, I'm sure this is the control that is going to electrically cage and uncage your sight. Right now it is mechanically caged. Okay, still coming around. Okay, I can jettison bombs, rockets, or tanks with this switch. Let me see. Outboard tank's empty, so that should illuminate, obviously, when the outboard tanks are empty. So this is just a fuel tank control panel. Okay, right now it's set to all tanks off. If it had tanks installed, I would put it to, let me see, either outboard on in jet or inboard on. How would this work? Okay, yeah, either outboard on in jet or inboard on in jet. And then I have individual controls for left and right. So yeah, if I have a fuel imbalance, I suppose I could even it out a little bit using this. I don't know, I'll do some more research into that and see what the intended purpose of these are, but yeah, right now they're off if you have no tanks. On, outboard initially, and then you would want to, once your outboards are depleted, switch to inboard on in jet to then deplete your inboards. You want to go outboard and then inboard on your tanks. Okay, looks like a secondary flight control type panel here. I've got landing gear indicators. I've got pitot heat on and off, landing lights, landing gear warning lights, anti-ice. Okay, this will be an engine inlet screen that I can extend or retract, or I can put into the anti-ice position. So if I'm on the ground and I'm taxiing and I'm afraid of something getting ingested into the intake, I can extend the screen. Or if I'm in flight and I should have a light, a warning light here somewhere, warning me that I have icing on my engine inlet, then I can go to the anti-ice position, and there's like a little alcohol dispenser that will eliminate some of the icing. Okay, then down here it looks like oxygen controls. Okay, got a demand regulator. Right now it's full on. Okay, emergency jettison, like a backup emergency jettison handle. And jettison special stores, doesn't look like that's hooked up to anything. It's no big deal because we don't have any nukes modeled, which is just as well, I guess. Okay, landing gear handle. Okay, so overall, yeah, that's a pretty standard setup. Environmental, secondary flight control, fuels, more secondary flight control. Okay, then we have, this is what, yeah, the manual PIP control. Boy, it's going to be great if this is modeled, because this is my kind of bombing right here. What this does is it controls the mil setting of the reticule in the HUD. Or not the HUD, but in the gun sight. So I can turn this, and the way this works, this is very, very neat. Oh, look at that. That is too cool. Let me explain how this works real quick. Okay, so when it's like this, I can manually set this to a certain mil setting. And we'll get into exactly what all this means. But if you're familiar with old-style aircraft and old-style bombing, it's all built around diving on the target at a specific dive angle and a specific airspeed, and then releasing the weapon when you hit all the right perimeters for the release. It's usually based on altitude and airspeed and dive angle. So you use this to set this pipper to a certain mil setting, And then when everything converges, you have the pipper over the target, you have the perfect airspeed, the perfect altitude, and the perfect dive angle, then you release the bomb. And this is going to help us out. I hope this is... Put this to bomb real quick and... Oh, look at that. Okay, so... Oh, this is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so as I twist up on the knob, okay, now I'm at 0 mils. Keep coming. 80, 90. Okay, this is probably more the area that we're going to be in. 130 to 140 mils is what I'm expecting for manual bombing here. But the interesting thing about this is that it's a classic case of 1950s over-engineering and just overthinking the solution to a problem. Because check this out, we have these little tabs that we can bring down. So these give us the desired altitude for the roll-in, the speed that you want to be at during the roll-in. So based on that, okay, say I wanted to roll in from 10,000 feet at 305 knots, and I wanted to release at 4,000 feet above the target. I would turn the knob over to there, and it's going to give me the perfect mil setting. Now additionally, what it's going to do is I have this indicator up here. This is my altitude. I feel like I'm getting way too much detail, but this is too much fun to look at. But I have an altitude up here, and what I should have is like a red indexer down here for... Let me see, what am I missing to get this red indexer up? I'm missing this. Okay, so I said I wanted to release at 4,000 feet, so I set this red indexer to 4,000 feet. So now, let me try this. Now as I dive, I should see my altimeter roll down. So, okay, let me try to recover from this. What airspeed am I at? Let me pull the throttle back. Okay, getting in some buffet there, possibly of the... Okay. I wonder if my flight controls are set up correctly. That just didn't feel right. Something may just be a little bit reversed, but... Okay, either way, I'll try this again. But as I dive, I would set things up so that I have the reticle tracking the target, and then as the altimeter reaches the desired release altitude, it just gives you like a manual additional reference up here to know when to release the bomb. And this is just one of the... And that's absolutely going to work, and I can already tell. It's going to be a lot of fun. And there are other systems we can use that are just built into the A4 site. You have that one for 10,000. I have another one for 15,000 feet at 280 knots. I had 20,000 feet at 270 knots. Okay, yeah, this is going to be fun. Let me turn this off. Let me recage my... I'll recage my my sight and keep coming around. Okay. I've got the GAR8, it's like the AIM-9B controls up here. They're not going to do anything for now, since we don't have missiles modeled as of yet. We just level up here. Try to. I need to get my trim set up. I'll get that when I get to the stick. And coming around, of course, we have the A4 gunnery and bombing sight. So the way that this works is that I could manually input a wingspan for the aircraft, and I just need to get the wingspan for the MiG-15, and I can essentially just dial it into that wingspan and be all set for eternity, or at least until we get another appropriate target for the F-86. And then I could either manually, using this little twist grip on my throttle, either manually adjust the range, or if I have a target that's picked up by the radar will automatically compensate for range and give me an appropriate track with the gun sight. So we'll see that once we get into weapons deployment. That's how that works. Let me see. Additionally, I have radar range sweep. The maximum setting is your basic setting, but like if you get down to low level, until I get a better handle on handling the aircraft, I'm kind of concerned about what happened there a moment ago. I was not expecting things to be that squirrely, but I'll figure it out as I get into more detail. But if you're at low level, you should start to pick up a little bit of ground clutter in the radar, so you can adjust the range that it's sweeping by going to a lower setting on this rheostat. Okay, this doesn't really do anything other than manually adjust the target, or work with the manual pip sight. You see, I've got this reticle dimmer. There we go. I've got this one that cages and uncages. Now this is a kind of a touchy sight, so if you're maneuvering around or taxiing or putting any kind of a vibration on the aircraft, you want to have the side caged. And that's the manual cage, and I can also depress this button on top of my throttle to cage up the sight, but unless you're ready to fire the weapon, you really want to leave this cage just to keep from damaging the sight. And folks, I'm going to put a break in this video right here and come back next time with a continuation of the look around the cockpit and continue to get a little bit more of a feel for how the aircraft handles in the air. So thanks again for watching, and if you are enjoying this series, especially on the first few videos, please do consider leaving a like or leaving a comment in the comment section below. Your feedback sure does help out a lot. And I will see you next time.